At the family intervention, my pulse pounded as I faced Nathan, an ambitious rival whose magnetic intensity masked a betrayal that had seeped not only into our business, but into the depths of my trust. With every calculated step he took, I watched my defenses crumble into shards, and in that shattering moment, I realized that the person I once trusted was the architect of my undoing. Chapter 1. Shattered Foundations. The boardroom lights hummed above, their sterile brightness a cruel contrast to the murky tensions swirling inside the room. Emma stood at the head of the long mahogany table, her eyes scanning the anxious faces of the board members gathered for an impromptu emergency meeting. The hush that had settled was heavy with unspoken dread, as if everyone was waiting for the moment when the dam of secrets would finally burst. From the moment the meeting had been called, ominous whispers had circulated. A trusted partner, whose loyalty had long been unquestioned, was under a shadow of betrayal. Emma's pulse pounded in her ears as she glanced down at the dossier clutched in her trembling hands, evidence thinly veiled but unmistakable. A clandestine arrangement, a covert alignment with an antagonistic interest, had been orchestrated behind her back, leaving her world teetering on the brink of collapse. As she slowly raised her gaze, each word that fluttered between the tense silence and the heavy air felt like an opening crack in a foundation built on trust and promise. Emma's mind replayed memories of countless late nights, filled with fiery discussions, brainstorming sessions that had promised growth, and moments of genuine warmth shared in the glow of ambition. The cruel irony stung. The same hands that once built dreams were now ripping them apart. It was then that Nathan stepped into her line of sight. He lingered near the edge of the table, his posture distanced and impeccably composed, his dark eyes calculating every nuance of the unfolding drama. There was a subtle menace in his cool gaze, a silent commentary on the chaos about to engulf their once tight-knit group. Every rational thought in Emma's head warned her of the dangerous magnetism he exuded, hinting at hidden motives and ambitions, cloaked in an ever-so-charming veneer. The meeting commenced with terse acknowledgments, but the air was anything but cordial. Emma's trusted partner, Gregory, had been summoned in haste to explain discrepancies discovered in the company's financial audits. His voice trembled ever so slightly when he stood to address the board, and the board members exchanged uneasy glances that betrayed a shared horror at the implications of his revelations. With a shaky tone, he recounted his unauthorized meetings and secret negotiations, explicit details that painted a picture of corporate treachery. Each word, like a stroke from a master painter, filled the room with a grim tableau of deceit and betrayal. Emma felt as though shockwaves were coursing through her, her mind struggling to piece together how the meticulously laid plans of mutual growth had crumbled so quickly. Every sentence spoken was a reminder of the deep vulnerability that accompanied trust. The betrayal wasn't just a financial blow. It was a personal one, a wound inflicted by someone she had admired and depended on. As Gregory detailed the extent of the partnership's deception, Emma's heart sank, and a tear, unbidden and raw, glistened on her cheek before she forcefully blinked it away. In that instant, the resolve built over years of leadership wavered, revealing the fragile human frailties beneath the professional armor. Nathan's presence, as always calculated and detached, seemed even more pronounced amidst the swirling accusations. His cool composure was punctuated by an almost imperceptible smirk, as if the unfolding drama was but a chess move in a game he had been orchestrating all along. His eyes roamed over the room with a predatory interest, dissecting each reaction with an unsettling precision. For a fleeting moment, as if drawn by invisible strings, he locked eyes with Emma. In that brief gaze, a silent conversation of accusation and complicity passed between them, a recognition of shared ambitions and a heavy price of trust betrayed. The discussion escalated, voices rising and falling like the tide of a storm. Board members jostled for the truth, amid the clamor of doubts and confessions. Emma's inner turmoil swirled. She clutched her chest as her heart fought against the overwhelming tide of betrayal that now defined the moment. At one point, as she confronted Gregory with a firm yet shaking inquiry about his motivations, the raw vulnerability in her voice laid bare the deep chasm of distrust that had suddenly emerged. It was not only a question of numbers or corporate interests. It was a blow to the very soul of the enterprise she had painstakingly nurtured. Outside the boardroom windows, a gray sky mirrored the dismal mood inside. The rain had started to fall, synchronizing with the rhythm of Emma's thoughts, a mournful patter that echoed the collapse of her carefully constructed world. With each drip against the glass, memories of past collaborations, long nights of strategic planning, and mutual assurances of loyalty resurfaced in dissonant detail. The crisp sound of the raindrops merged with the charged silence, making the betrayal feel all the more surreal, as if nature itself was grieving this loss of trust. Every element of the meeting underscored the fracturing of a once stable foundation. Emma's voice, though steady on the surface, betrayed underlying tremors of despair as she pieced together the puzzle of deception. Accusations flew like shards of broken glass, and she struggled to reconcile the facade of professionalism with the thought of being deeply betrayed. The pain was intimate, a testament to her vulnerability. She was no longer the invincible leader everyone expected, but a woman grappling with the human costs of ambition and greed. In tumultuous moments punctuated by heated exchanges and bitter revelations, Emma felt an aching solitude wrap around her like a shroud. Even as she dispatched questions and demanded accountability, there was a lingering shadow of isolation that refused to lift. All around her, colleagues wrestled with their own disillusionment, each face a gallery of doubts and newfound skepticism. As the meeting drew to a close, Emma's determination hardened even as her spirit faltered. She vowed that the betrayal would not dismantle her, but the seeds of distrust, now sown deep, would forever alter the way she regarded those around her. The final moments of the meeting coalesced into a quiet agreement. The immediate focus would be damage control, and insinuations of further conspiracies would be tabled for later analysis. Yet, in the silence that barricaded the room after the fierce storm of words had subsided, the tension remained palpable, a brittle truce forged on the anvil of broken trust. Nathan's enigmatic smile was the lingering note on a discordant chord, and his eyes suggested that he possessed information and motives yet unexplored, an awareness that, in another time or another context, would serve him well or perhaps further complicate matters for Emma. As the board members drifted out one by one, their faces etched with the realization that nothing would ever be the same, Emma stayed behind. She retraced her steps to the window, her eyes fixed on the rain-slicked pavement below. In that moment, with the residual echoes of betrayal vibrating in her soul, she allowed herself a solitary goodbye to the innocence of trusting relationships. The weight of the betrayal was concrete now, a burden that would demand retribution, re-evaluation, and perhaps even transformation. And as her mind reeled with the implications not only for the business but for her own identity as a leader, one truth crystallized amidst the shards of shattered foundations. Every crack in the glass reflected a deeper vulnerability, one that could either shatter her spirit forever or ignite a determination to rebuild stronger, wiser than before. The chapter closed with Emma resolving to dig deeper into the web of deceit. The betrayal, raw and unrelenting, would not be hidden or forgotten. It demanded a confrontation, a reckoning with every hidden motive lurking behind closed doors. Nathan's shadowed presence lingered in her thoughts like a riddle, promising that his involvement was far from incidental. Little did she know that this moment of painful clarity would set the stage for all the conflicts yet to come, where every alliance forged in the heat of ambition might one day reveal its own secrets. And so, amid the ruins of shattered trust and a relentless patter of rain, Emma stood resolute. Her next steps, though fraught with uncertainty, would be driven by both the scars of betrayal and the unyielding strength that only true adversity can evoke. Chapter 2. Tenuous Alliances. The clock in the deserted office ticked steadily as afternoon light filtered through the blinds. Emma had chosen this secluded space to confront Nathan, whose actions left her shattered. The betrayal still stung, a wound that throbbed with each thought of the business fallout. Nathan leaned against the oak desk, his gaze steady yet conflicted. The air was thick with unspoken words and underlying attraction. Emma approached, her footsteps echoing in the silence. "Why did you turn your back on us?" Emma asked, her voice simmering with intensity. Nathan's lips tightened. "Emma, business is messy. I did what I thought was best for survival." "Survival? You chose someone's interests over our trust. Now I'm left cleaning up the damages," she retorted, her intellect sharp with hurt. A heavy pause stretched between them as their shared history and fresh wounds interlaced. "I thought I was helping," Nathan admitted. "But I see now I compromised more than the business, I compromised us." Emma's gaze wavered, a mix of anger and empathy. "You left me in the dark, Nathan. I was left to deal with the fallout." "I never meant to hurt you," Nathan said, his voice revealing vulnerability. "I realize now I've lost sight of what mattered." Emma's anger softened, replaced by raw clarity. "I trusted you, Nathan," she admitted. "Not just as a partner, but as someone who meant more to me." Nathan's eyes darkened with remorse. "I'm trying to reconcile the man I hope to be with my mistakes. I'm sorry, Emma." The charged silence was alive with complex emotions. Emma battled with whether to remain guarded or to let down her defenses. She stepped closer, trying to read the truth behind his apology. "Maybe we both need to face what we've become," she whispered. The conflict that defined their relationship transformed into an unexpected connection. Nathan took a step closer, and their lips met, a passionate kiss loaded with years of frustration, longing, and remorse. The kiss was not tentative. It was a collision of conflicting emotions, a desperate yet liberating exclamation point. It was as if the tension of their conversation had been distilled into a single point of surrender. When they broke apart, breathless and wide-eyed, reality crashed back in. Emma's heart pounded, a mix of indignation and curiosity. Nathan reached out, fingertips grazing her cheek. "We can't pretend this displaces what happened," Emma said. "But maybe it forces us to see each other in a new light." Nathan nodded, acceptance dawning. "I know I've got a lot to answer for, but perhaps there's a way forward." Emma felt the lingering heat of their encounter, an ember of caution and hope. "I need time, Nathan," she murmured. "Time to decide if I can forgive you and trust again, but it's a start." Nathan's expression was earnest contrition and cautious hope. "Take all the time you need." As the afternoon waned into dusk, their conversation echoed in the sterile office, a testament to the complexities of human connection. Amid the bitterness of treachery and the sweetness of unexpected passion, they sensed the path ahead would be anything but simple. The kiss had not solved the wounds of the past, but had braided their destinies together, demanding they face their future as reluctant allies on the precipice of a hesitant reconciliation. In that quiet room, the lines between betrayal and desire, ambition and vulnerability, were redrawn, and Emma allowed herself to entertain the notion that perhaps, despite everything, there was still something worth salvaging. Chapter 3: Family Intervention. The living room was filled with the late afternoon sun's gentle glow, casting shadows over Emma's family gathered around the oak table. This was not a celebration but a reckoning. Emma stood near the window, arms folded, burdened by professional collapse and personal betrayal. The family intervention aimed to help Emma navigate her shattered trust and mounting pressures. Anna, once a close friend, now showed vulnerability. Sarah and Jake, usually in conflict over the family business, cast concerned glances, while Nathan, the ambitious one, stood by Emma, his demeanor softened by the situation. Emma's mother broke the silence, her voice gentle yet firm. "Emma, we care about you. We can't see you hurting like this." Her words resonated, speaking to every heart present. Emma's heart pounded with betrayal and isolation as her mother continued. Nathan spoke next, admitting his emotional absence due to business preoccupations. "I care about more than just numbers. I want to help us through this." His sincerity cracked the dam of emotions Emma had built. Family members shared their perspectives. Sarah, recalling past betrayals, spoke of rebuilding trust. Jake bluntly acknowledged their mistakes, emphasizing forgiveness. Their words resonated with Emma, softening her stoic facade. As the dialogue continued, Emma's internal dialogue shifted. Faces filled with care reminded her that healing was possible. Nathan's eyes showed regret and concern, revealing a depth beyond his ambition. An elderly relative recounted trusting the wrong person, only to later receive amends. Her words suggested that forgiveness could be more powerful than hurt, stirring something within Emma. The atmosphere shifted from accusation to shared determination. Emma realized she wasn't alone in her struggles. Each family member bore scars of trust issues, yet glowed with hope for healing. Emma locked eyes with Nathan, who quietly promised, "I'm here, not just in business, but as someone who cares deeply about you." His vulnerability offered a glimpse of hope for a future built on understanding. Emma reflected on earlier days when trust was natural. The intervention reminded her of who she once was and who she could be again. An uncle encouraged, "Trust is worth every difficult step." The tension transformed into a gentle catharsis. Emma faced the truth, her hurt, her eroded trust. Yet, in vulnerability, there was strength in accepting help and mending relationships. As the intervention wound down, Emma stepped forward, her voice gaining confidence. "I forgot what we can rebuild together. Maybe it's time to start trusting again, not just in others, but in myself too." Nathan responded, "I understand if it's hard to trust again. I'm here, and I won't stop trying to be the partner you deserve." His words were a delicate promise of healing and rebuilding trust. Surrounded by her family's warmth, Emma allowed herself a hopeful smile. The intervention lit a spark, a promise of reconciliation between her personal wounds and professional life. Later, as family members left with hugs and renewed commitment, Emma reflected on the day's transformation. She realized true strength lay in allowing others to help carry heartache. Looking at Nathan's remorseful expression, she saw a man ready to support her in rebuilding trust. In the end, the intervention was not just airing grievances. It was a crucible of raw emotion and honest reflection, challenging Emma to embrace vulnerability as strength. Healing was possible, both in love and business, through shared humanity. Chapter 4. Redemption in the Aftermath. The atmosphere in the barely lit conference room was thick with tension, as the key players of the crumbling enterprise gathered for one last emergency meeting. Shadows and glaring computer screens intermingled with stifled whispers of disbelief, as revelations unfolded faster than anyone could have anticipated. The air was heavy with a mingling of regret and determination, as each person braced to confront the betrayals that had led them to this precarious moment. At the head of the oval table, Emma's eyes reflected both the weight of past mistakes and a spark of resolve that refused to be snuffed out. This meeting was not just about the company's survival. It was a reckoning, a moment where hidden truths would re-emerge, demanding acknowledgement, and a collective decision to rebuild on a new foundation of honesty and trust. Nathan, standing a few paces behind her, exuded a quiet confidence despite his inner turmoil. His presence was a silent pledge to stand by Emma, even as the undercurrents of old wounds threatened to flood over them. The two had weathered misunderstandings and miscommunications for months, their personal relationship interwoven with the professional chaos that now engulfed them. Their eyes often met across the table, finding solace in mutual resilience as the meeting unfolded. The meeting was abruptly disrupted when a trusted confidante, Marcus, rose unexpectedly to unburden himself. With a tremor in his voice and eyes downcast, he began to detail a network of deceit that went far beyond what anyone had suspected. Files, emails, and internal memos were brought forward as evidence of alliances that had crumbled under greed and opportunism. His revelations painted a damning picture of not only external sabotage, but also internal betrayals. As each piece of evidence was laid bare, the room buzzed with murmurs of shock and discontent. Whispers turned quickly into heated voices as members began to recall moments of subtle disloyalty and calculated avoidance. Emma's mind raced back to earlier instances when decisions had been clouded by hidden agendas. She thought of late-night discussions and unspoken disagreements that had led to this very moment of exposure. It became painfully evident that the bonds once assumed to be sturdy had been weakened by secret deals and half-truths. Yet, amid the storm of accusations, a certain clarity emerged, a mandate that transcended individual missteps and demanded a collective commitment to truth and repentance. As the fallout continued, Nathan took charge of redirecting the conversation toward salvaging what remained. He methodically addressed each point, pairing harsh revelations with a pragmatic outline to secure their enterprise's future. His voice was steady, laced with the weight of someone who had once feared his own vulnerability would be used against him. In that moment, his polished determination redefined the boundaries of leadership, drawing a clear line between the past betrayals and the emerging hope. During a brief pause, amidst the chaos of unveiling secrets and assigning blame, Emma and Nathan found solace in each other's gaze. Their shared history was a tapestry of complicated emotions: anger, despair, regret, and despite the shattered trust in surrounding colleagues, an ember of something deeper that still connected them. In hushed tones, they whispered fragments of past conversations and remembered nights when their hopes were not tainted by doubt. Their shared smiles recalled moments when a simple word had meant everything, and every gesture was laden with unspoken promises. A cutting remark from one of the board members brought everyone back to the present, and the meeting turned into a final crucible for accountability. Each individual was called upon to explain their role in the sequence of betrayals that now threatened to derail the company completely. What emerged was a painful, yet necessary catharsis, a moment when the entire assembly, including those who had harbored secrets out of self-interest or fear, was forced to come to terms with their misdeeds and the consequences thereof. Standing once more before the group, Emma admitted her own part in the complex web of misunderstandings. She acknowledged that her guarded nature, born of previous hurts and the struggle to balance personal integrity with professional demands, had partly contributed to the silence that allowed deception to fester. Her confession was neither self-pitying nor defiant. It was a sincere declaration of her willingness to learn from past errors and move forward with a clearer perspective. Nathan supported her, not with grand apologies or sweeping gestures, but with the kind of quiet determination that said, "We can rebuild together, piece by piece." As the meeting drew to a close, the air was charged not with the remnants of suspicion, but with an emerging promise of renewal. The final act in the room was not one of recrimination, but rather a shared understanding that the future depended on the willingness to forgive, to accept personal shortcomings, and to embrace vulnerability in the pursuit of authenticity. New protocols were proposed, designed to ensure transparency and accountability, and while no single plan could erase the scars of the past, everyone recognized that this was the only way to move forward. Stepping away from the table to a quieter corridor, Emma and Nathan allowed themselves a moment of respite from the storm. The building's hushed corridors seemed to mirror the calm that was slowly settling over them. In the soft glow of a nearby lamp, they stood face to face, the residual energy of the meeting enveloping them in a vulnerable intimacy. The air between them crackled with unspoken apologies and bittersweet memories of missed opportunities, and it was then that they reached a tacit agreement to not let the past dictate their future. Their conversation was minimal, filled with the weight of shared trauma and the budding relief of newfound trust. Each word, though soft and measured, carried the conviction of a promise: to start anew, to be transparent with one another, and to prioritize the integrity of both their relationship and their enterprise. In that hushed space away from prying eyes, the lingering shadows of betrayal were met with honest, heartfelt admissions, bridging chasms built over so many painful months. The moment culminated in a tender, deliberate kiss, a gesture that symbolized not only the merging of two hearts battered by circumstance, but the sealing of a mutual commitment to rebuild trust. This kiss was not a flourish of passion born of reckless impulsivity, but rather a measured, sure step toward healing. It carried with it the resolve to face future challenges together, impervious to the echoes of past misgivings, as if each lingering doubt was washed away in that single transformative exchange. Outside the quiet of that secluded corridor, the meeting's outcomes resonated with each member. The final touches on the new business directives were not merely about salvaging money or reputation, they were about restoring a sense of ethical integrity that had been sorely tested. As the board dispersed, the room that once buzzed with accusations now held an underlying current of agreement, that every end must also be the start of something better. Walking side by side back into the larger hall, Emma and Nathan led by example. With eyes still reflecting the intimacy of their renewed bond, they discussed practical steps that would fortify the company's future while healing personal fractures. They acknowledged that trust would be a gradual process, formed not by grand declarations, but through consistent, honest actions. Yet as they planned for structural changes and outlined everyday protocols, they were buoyed by the memory of that final, redemptive kiss and the quiet reassurance it brought. In the waning moments of the day, as the last of the attendees departed, and the once chaotic meeting room settled into silence, Emma and Nathan lingered, their intertwined presence a testament to hope. It was clear now, amid the debris of shattered plans and the highway of exposed secrets, redemption had become not an abstract ideal, but a tangible promise, a promise penned in the sincerity of their words and the determination in their eyes. A promise that despite the cracks in the past, they would rise, together, to reclaim the future that they had so long dreamed about. The chapter ended not with a finality of sorrow, but with a quiet prelude to new beginnings. The scars of betrayal were not erased in that moment, but they became the roadmap to a future brighter than the darkness that had once enveloped them. Emma and Nathan, now bound by forgiveness and united in their vision,